creativity and the spirituality is all one. With my spirituality being together, I can more or less call upon my creativity.
When you think of Maurice White, the founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire, it's hard not to picture the infectious rhythms and soul-stirring harmonies that defined his music. But behind the scenes, Maurice White's life was far from perfect. His journey was marked by deep struggles, starting with a lonely childhood and being unfairly labeled a musical disappointment. He faced a violent assault right before his music career truly began, and later battled a debilitating disease that cut his career short. Maurice's life was a series of heartbreaking challenges. So how did he manage to keep these struggles hidden from the world? This video reveals the tragic events that shaped his life, including the untold stories about his romance and marriage with Marilyn White. His personal and professional hardships were never far from the surface. This came into sharp focus in March 2012, when the entertainment world was rocked by a major controversy involving White. The drama unfolded when Charles Stepney's children filed a lawsuit against White, accusing him of failing to pay thousands of dollars in royalties owed to Stepney. The twist? Stepney, the music producer behind some of Earth, Wind, and Fire's biggest hits, had been dead for over 30 years. Despite the uproar, Maurice White remained resolute, insisting that he did not owe anything to his late friend and colleague. He even demanded that the court dismiss the case. The scandal dominated headlines and was widely reported as one of the most tragic events in Maurice White's life. But this portrayal missed the true depth of his struggles. Years earlier, before White founded Earth, Wind, and Fire, and while he was still drumming with the Ramsey Lewis Trio, he crossed paths with Marilyn, a Hispanic cashier. White fell for her instantly, and she felt the same way about him. However, Marilyn was married, which could have been a significant obstacle. Undeterred by potential controversy, White embarked on a passionate romance with her. At the time, Marilyn, 28, was unhappily married to Salvador, a much older man who worked as Elvis Presley's hairdresser. Despite the circumstances and Marilyn's struggles with a marriage she felt trapped in, White pursued the relationship with fervor, fully aware of the risks involved. In an interview with Dr. Marissa Pay, Marilyn White revealed that she had taken a job as a cashier at the store where she first met Maurice White as a means of escaping her troubled marriage. She described their initial encounter as nothing short of electrifying. On that first day, Maurice barely acknowledged her presence, and despite the attempts of other band members to engage her, he remained aloof. It wasn't until he finally did notice her that Marilyn felt an intense connection. She described the sensation vividly, saying, "A fire licked me up from inside out, and the flame would move from his eyes to his mouth, and that smile would bring tingles all over my body." Maurice was immediately drawn to her and asked her out to dinner. When Marilyn revealed that she was married, he proposed that she bring her husband along. However, Marilyn eventually met Maurice alone that evening. Their conversation quickly revealed a deep bond as they discovered a shared passion for jazz. Their connection was immediate and profound, sparking a whirlwind romance. Marilyn and Maurice's relationship blossomed into a passionate affair that saw them touring cities together, enjoying scenic rides down the coast, and even purchasing a home in Carmel Valley. Despite the intense and electrifying romance between Maurice White and Marilyn, their relationship faced significant challenges due to White's extensive and ongoing relationships with other women. Marilyn often noticed the lingering scent of other women on him when he returned home, a sign of his numerous affairs. The strain from these infidelities became evident over time. In 1974, just 4 years after meeting Marilyn, White fathered his first child, Hamia White. Rumors swirled that Hamia was not Marilyn's daughter, and these rumors were later confirmed in Maurice White's memoir, where he revealed that Hamia's mother was actually Evelyn Carter, not Marilyn. Despite the growing tension in their relationship, Marilyn eventually gave birth to White's second child, Sin White, who was his first son. Contrary to widespread belief, Marilyn and Maurice never married. Marilyn disclosed that she rejected White's sole marriage proposal while she was pregnant, as she was still deeply affected by her previous troubled marriage. Maurice White's personal life remained complicated and controversial. In his memoir, he admitted that despite having 3 children with 3 different women, he never married any of them. He also revealed that the mother of his youngest child, Aiden, was a Caucasian woman whom he considered his soulmate. Maurice White's personal life was a whirlwind of high-profile relationships and rumored affairs. Over the years, he was speculated to have dated several notable women, including Jennifer Holliday, Chaka Khan, Angie Stone, Denise Williams, and Wona Smith. Of these, his rumored relationship with Angie Stone was particularly intriguing. Their undeniable chemistry, especially during their on-stage performances, fueled speculation throughout the 1990s, though neither White nor Stone ever publicly confirmed the relationship. In his memoir, Maurice White reflected on his tumultuous personal life with a sense of regret. He expressed deep remorse for not having settled down and for the strained relationships with the women in his life. His regrets were compounded by his distant relationship with his children. Marilyn White, his former partner, revealed that Maurice was largely absent, leaving her to raise their son, Sin, on her own. She recounted how White was so nervous around his newborn son that he hesitated to hold him, fearing he might accidentally cause harm. This anxiety, Marilyn suggested, was likely rooted in White's own difficult childhood, which may have influenced his struggles with fatherhood and personal relationships. Maurice White's early years were shaped by a harsh reality. Raised in the projects of South Memphis, Tennessee, he lived in impoverished conditions with his grandmother. The projects were a stark representation of poverty, home to struggling black families trying to make ends meet. Despite his mother being married to a doctor and saxophonist, Verdine Adams, their family lived far away in Chicago, leaving White largely without a father figure or role model during his formative years. His grandmother, a hard-working and religious woman, did her best to provide for him, but the environment was challenging. White grew up in a neighborhood plagued by substance abuse. Though he managed to avoid falling into those traps, he took on his first job as a paperboy, delivering newspapers to predominantly white neighborhoods. This experience exposed him to racism firsthand. As a teenager, Maurice White faced a harrowing experience that would leave a deep impact on him. While delivering newspapers in the late 1950s in Memphis, he encountered a nightmarish episode of racial discrimination. Despite his youth, the police officers who stopped him showed no restraint. They hurled racial slurs, physically assaulted him, and even tore up his papers. The assault was brutal and unprovoked, and White, shaken and traumatized, described the aftermath in his memoir, My Life with Earth, Wind and Fire. He recounted, "When they finally stopped, they calmly got in their cruiser and slowly drove off. I could hear their laughter fading as they got farther and farther away. Once I got up, I just stood there, sweating and shaking in the cool evening air. I had urinated on myself. I vowed that if I got stopped again by the police, I would run and cut through somebody's backyard. The fear haunted me for several months." This traumatic incident not only scarred White emotionally, but also instilled a lasting fear of law enforcement that lingered long after. The experience shaped his view of authority and marked a significant moment in his life before he eventually moved to Chicago with his mother, Edna Parker, and his stepfather. Maurice White's passion for music was ignited within the walls of his grandmother's church, where hymns and drums created a musical sanctuary. This early exposure to music laid the foundation for his future, and his talent was further honed at the Chicago Conservatory of Music. Despite the rich cultural environment, the music scene in Chicago was challenging for black artists, including White. Determined to overcome these obstacles, White immersed himself in the local music scene, playing drums for various clubs and recording sessions at Chess Records. White's persistence paid off when he joined an all-black jazz trio, led by the renowned pianist Ramsey Lewis. For a decade, he was an integral part of this trio, gaining invaluable experience and solidifying his reputation. In 1969, White took a bold step by founding his own band, initially named the Salty Peppers, alongside his brother Verdine Adams, who would later adopt White as his surname, and 9 other musicians. Despite the promising start, the band's initial impact did not meet White's expectations. The struggle to make a significant mark in the industry was compounded by a series of tragic events that followed. The formation of Earth, Wind, and Fire was initially met with excitement and enthusiasm, but the band's journey was soon marred by significant challenges. According to statements from band members, particularly Philip Bailey in his memoir Shining Star, Maurice White's authoritarian leadership style created numerous problems within the group. His demanding and controlling approach led to mounting tensions, eventually resulting in White calling for a hiatus of the band's activities in the mid-1980s. Before these internal issues came to a head, Earth, Wind, and Fire faced a tumultuous start in the competitive entertainment industry. The band poured their efforts into recording their self-titled debut album in 1977, followed by The Need of Love, released the following year. Despite their hard work and dedication, both albums failed to make a significant impact, leaving White and the band disheartened. In a bold and controversial move, Maurice White made a drastic decision. He fired all 7 members of Earth, Wind, and Fire, keeping only his brother Verdine White, the bassist. To revitalize the group, he brought in 9 new members, including the talented vocalist Philip Bailey. This shakeup proved to be a turning point, as the newly reformed band achieved their first major hit with the 1974 single Open Our Eyes. Despite this success, White's challenges were far from over. One of his key changes was the addition of a female vocalist, Jessica Cleaves, which brought the total number of vocalists to 3. While this decision was intended to enhance the group's sound and dynamic, it soon led to new issues that White would need to address. Jessica Cleaves, the newest addition to Earth, Wind, and Fire, soon became a source of considerable turmoil. According to Philip Bailey's memoir Shining Star, Cleaves frequently missed performances and even called off shows, but her issues went beyond mere attendance problems. She struggled with substance abuse, which compounded the difficulties within the band. Despite Cleaves eventually leaving the group on her own accord, her troubles clearly left a mark on Maurice White. In contrast to Bailey's fond recollections, which praised Cleaves for her sweetness, beautiful eyes, and impressive voice, White's memoir portrayed a starkly different view. He described Cleaves's substance abuse issues in a detached manner, suggesting that her departure was inevitable. Following her exit, White made a decisive choice. He would not replace her with another female vocalist. The band continued as an all-male ensemble, but this decision did not shield Earth, Wind, and Fire from further challenges. In 1976, Maurice White faced a devastating blow when his close friend and collaborator, Charles Stepney, died from a heart attack while they were recording the album Spirit. Stepney had been the producer behind all of Earth, Wind, and Fire's music, making his loss particularly profound for White. Despite Stepney's previous illness and subsequent recovery, his sudden death left White reeling. In his reflections, White expressed the shock and sorrow of losing Stepney, writing, "No matter how death comes, sudden or not, it's always a shock." The grief did not end there. Just 2 years later, on July 16, 1979, White's sorrow deepened with the death of his beloved mother. Her passing was a significant blow to White, compounding the series of personal tragedies he had endured. Despite these heart-wrenching losses, Earth, Wind, and Fire eventually found their breakthrough in the 1970s, achieving the popularity that had long eluded them. By 1980, Maurice White's autocratic approach to leadership began to sow discord within Earth, Wind, and Fire. The tensions came to a head with guitarist Al McKay, who grew increasingly frustrated with what he perceived as inequitable cash distribution between White and the rest of the band. McKay's dissatisfaction with White's management style led to escalating hostilities. In his memoir, White recounted the deteriorating relationship, describing the intensity of their conflicts. "Al had had it with my leadership. We were clashing hard and had some serious heated disagreements. It got so bad that a few times we had to take it outside so as not to completely ruin the vibe in the studio." The ongoing friction highlighted the growing divide between White's vision for the band and the discontent brewing among its members. After a particularly fiery argument during their South American tour, guitarist Al McKay announced he was quitting Earth, Wind & Fire. Although he initially decided to stay, White's patience wore thin, leading him to fire McKay when he refused to fly to their next show in Mexico. Philip Bailey noted that McKay's departure was met with sorrow from most of the band members, except for White himself. McKay's exit emboldened the remaining members to voice their growing frustrations more openly. They criticized White for his authoritarian control and his unwillingness to consider their ideas or suggestions. White, however, remained resolute in his approach, explaining that his bandmates did not fully grasp his vision and intentions. This rigid control and the perceived lack of collaboration only heightened the tensions within the group. In a bid to restore harmony within the band, Maurice White made personal efforts to meet with each of his bandmates individually, hoping to ease tensions and smooth over conflicts. Despite these attempts, the discord persisted, and the atmosphere within the group remained fraught. During this turbulent period, White grew increasingly dissatisfied with the direction of the band's sound. As he worked on what would become the last Earth, Wind & Fire album for several years, he felt a creative block akin to a massive dam obstructing his artistic flow. This frustration led him to contemplate a significant shift in his career. White began to entertain the idea of striking out on his own, seeking to establish a distinct individual identity separate from the band's collective image. His growing desire for personal artistic freedom marked the beginning of a pivotal change in his career trajectory. In 1983, Earth, Wind & Fire faced a dramatic turn of events when their album Electric Universe failed to resonate with audiences. The once celebrated band, known for their high-energy performances and chart-topping hits, found themselves mired in studio discontent and creative frustration. Maurice White, grappling with mounting challenges, made a bold and controversial decision. He announced an indefinite hiatus for the band. The abruptness of White's decision took everyone by surprise, including his own brothers and longtime bandmates. The announcement was made casually one afternoon at his Bel Air home, where White simply stated, "The band is on hiatus. We had worked together for over 12 years. It's just time to do things on our own. I don't want to be forced to do an album because of a contractual obligation. We'll probably do something together again, but I don't know when. Maybe at the end of this year, maybe next year, who knows?" The abrupt hiatus of Earth, Wind & Fire was like being cast into a storm, leaving its members scrambling for their livelihoods. With the band on indefinite pause, many found themselves in dire straits, taking on jobs outside the entertainment industry just to make ends meet. The disruption also took a toll on Maurice White. His foray into solo work did not meet the expectations he had hoped for. In 1984, the New York Times described White's solo efforts as underwhelming. Despite the promise of his solo album, which had been anticipated to produce pop hits, the singles Stand By Me and I Need You failed to make a significant impact. The review labeled them as pop fizzles and noted that White's once promising career seemed to have faltered. The paper also highlighted White's pivot to production work, mentioning his involvement with Neil Diamond, and ended with a bemused query about what a hip R&B artist was doing working with such a mainstream figure. Maurice White's decision to go solo also reignited discussions about his age, a topic he was known to detest. In interviews, White expressed his frustration with how age was perceived in the music industry. "I don't mind being my age," he stated, "but age can be a problem in this business. It can limit you." The impact of the band's hiatus was severe. Members faced significant financial difficulties, with some losing their homes and fortunes. The stress and instability led to nervous breakdowns for several bandmates, who sought therapy to cope with their emotional strain. The fallout also strained relationships within the band, particularly between Maurice and his brother Verdine. For the first time, their bond was so strained that they barely spoke during this tumultuous period. The band's percussionist, Ralph Johnson, spoke to CBS News about the profound impact of the band's sudden hiatus. Reflecting on the situation, Johnson shared, "This is all we knew, this is all we had, so when somebody kind of pulls that rug out, you're like, now you've got to rethink your whole program." The abrupt end to their music career forced each member to confront the reality of their situation and make significant adjustments to their lives. Adding to White's challenges was the collapse of his label, the American Recording Company. Founded in 1978 during Earth, Wind and Fire's rise to fame, the label had become heavily reliant on the band for its success. When the band went on hiatus, the studio, unable to survive without its primary source of revenue, also faltered. White's troubles didn't end with the band's hiatus. He found himself in a contentious dispute with renowned artist Barbra Streisand after collaborating on her 1984 album Emotion. Maurice White had contributed to producing 3 tracks on the album, and while these songs garnered significant acclaim, he was far from satisfied with the outcome. His dissatisfaction stemmed from the fact that, contrary to their original agreement, none of the tracks were released as singles. Additionally, White discovered that Streisand had returned to the studio and made alterations to his work without informing him. In a candid interview, White voiced his frustration, stating, "If you're going to change my work, at least have the courtesy to let me know. Finding out months later from a book isn't the nicest way to learn about it." He made it clear that he would only consider future collaborations with her if he were given full control over the production of the entire album. In the late 80s, a glimmer of hope emerged for Earth, Wind and Fire as the band members reunited and even recorded a new album together, rekindling old bonds and a sense of camaraderie. However, their renewed harmony was tragically disrupted in 1993 when former saxophonist Don Myrick was shot and killed by a Santa Monica police officer. The incident occurred under dire circumstances. Myrick was mistakenly identified as a substance dealer during a police raid on his apartment. The officers, who had entered the apartment with an unusual key and without permission, encountered a struggle with Myrick. They later claimed they believed he was armed, though the object in question was merely a butane lighter. This tragic event echoed White's own past traumas, deeply affecting him and causing a significant emotional setback. It took months for him to regain his footing and process the loss. Antoinette Myrick, Don Myrick's mother, pursued legal action against the city with the backing of Earth, Wind and Fire, ultimately securing a settlement of $400,000. The band's support for the lawsuit highlighted their solidarity during this difficult time. However, shortly after this legal victory, Maurice White's health began to rapidly decline. Philip Bailey, speaking with CBS News, reflected on the painful experience of witnessing White's deteriorating condition. Bailey described the emotional journey, noting, "For several years, we faced it together. It took immense courage for Maurice to finally confront the reality of his illness. We all held out hope that it might be something treatable, something manageable, but eventually, we had to come to terms with the seriousness of the situation." Maurice White's struggle with Parkinson's disease began when he was diagnosed with the condition, a debilitating illness caused by the progressive degeneration of nerve cells in the substantia nigra, a critical part of the brain that controls movement. This degeneration impairs the production of dopamine, leading to the hallmark symptoms of Parkinson's: tremors, stiffness, and difficulty with coordination. The disease's progressive nature means that symptoms worsen over time, making daily life increasingly challenging. For White, being an international star while battling Parkinson's presented significant hurdles. Managing his health on a rigorous diet, essential for controlling his symptoms, became especially difficult during tours. Despite his dedication to maintaining a healthy lifestyle, he was known for his meticulous attention to wellness. The illness proved relentless. White's positive outlook masked the severity of his condition from the public and even from many of his band members for years. It wasn't until the early 1990s that White confided in his bandmates about his health issues. In 1994, facing the debilitating effects of Parkinson's, he made the difficult decision to stop touring and performing live with Earth, Wind, and Fire. This marked a poignant milestone, the first time in the band's history that they performed without their iconic leader. In March 2012, Maurice White faced a significant legal battle when Charles Stepney's children filed a lawsuit accusing him of failing to pay royalties owed to their late father since the release of Earth, Wind, and Fire's first album in 1970. White remained resolute in his defense, firmly denying any promises of payment. He was determined not to be coerced into complying with demands he believed were unjust, maintaining his stance with unwavering conviction. The controversy surrounding the lawsuit dominated headlines, but White's trials were far from over. By December of that year, a new and distressing rumor began to spread. On the morning of Friday, December 21, 2012, reports surfaced online claiming that White had passed away. The rumors gained such traction that Wikipedia editors updated his page to list December 21, 2012, as his date of death. Even rising star rapper Q-Tip, caught up in the confusion, expressed his sorrow on Twitter, writing, "Maurice White, one of my heroes. R.I.P." Despite the widespread misinformation, White had to navigate yet another chapter of public scrutiny and falsehoods in his storied life. The false rumors about Maurice White's death were swiftly debunked when Earth, Wind, and Fire's representatives issued a formal statement on the band's official Facebook page. The message, which sought to quell the growing panic, read, "Maurice White is alive and doing well. The rumors circulating online are false. Please help spread the word." In response, Q-Tip promptly deleted his earlier tribute tweet, and Wikipedia editors quickly corrected the erroneous information on White's page. Despite the brief confusion, Maurice White's health took a tragic turn. On February 4, 2016, he passed away peacefully in his sleep at his Los Angeles home. The battle with Parkinson's disease, which had plagued him for years, ultimately claimed his life. Maurice White died at the age of 74, leaving behind a legacy of remarkable contributions to music and an enduring impact on the world of soul and R&B. Maurice White's legacy was honored posthumously with a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award at the annual Grammy Awards ceremony on February 15, 2016, held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. This prestigious accolade celebrated his profound impact on the music industry. The ceremony featured a heartfelt tribute to White, with performances of "That's the Way of the World" by Stevie Wonder and the a cappella group Pentatonix, showcasing the enduring influence of his work with Earth, Wind, and Fire. White's influence extended across generations and genres, inspiring a diverse array of artists. Musicians such as Stockley Williams, Richard Marx, Raphael Saadiq, Larry Blackmon, and Nate Dogg have all cited Maurice White as a significant inspiration in their own careers, underscoring his lasting imprint on the world of music. Cabran White, one of Maurice White's sons and known for his striking resemblance to his famous father, has shared numerous photos on social media that highlight their similarities. The most poignant of these was posted on Father's Day in 2012. In the photo, Cabran and Maurice stand side by side, both beaming with joy. Maurice, dressed in a striped white and gray shirt with a dark blazer, contrasts with Cabron, who is clad in a simple white shirt. The proud expression on Cabron's face is evident, capturing the deep bond they shared. The accompanying caption reads, "To the coolest car I know, Happy Father's Day, Pop," reflecting Cabron's admiration and affection for his father. Maurice White's enduring legacy is a testament to his profound impact on music and his undeniable influence on generations of artists. His contributions to Earth, Wind and Fire, along with his personal struggles and triumphs, paint a complex portrait of a man who shaped the musical landscape while facing significant challenges. As we reflect on his life and the memories shared by those who knew him best, we're reminded of the powerful connection between a father and son and the lasting impression one person can make on the world. What are your thoughts on Maurice White's impact and legacy? Share your comments below to let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on more content in the future. Until next time, stay tuned.